Discernment is probably the most important skill to have in our day and age, because there is so much information, probably more misinformation than true information. We have to be able to discern. And this is the topic of today's discussion, truth and perception. That's
Exactly.
like one of the biggest question marks in the entire history of philosophy. I think, you know, I've tried to write about this. How would you people define perception? What is perception?
Perception is probably what you've been told, what you've been raised to believe. Because
So
there is truth. There is truth. Yeah.
That's perception management, surely.
Yeah.
It's the lens that you view the world with, right? Reality.
So the way out of that is what?
Objective
I'll
truth.
tell you what it is. The
Go ahead.
perception. There you go. The perception of conscience. P. Hall calls it perception, to perceive your own perception. That's the way out of perception management. It's you
You're breaking up pretty bad. Oh, is it it's my internet, huh?
The critical distance to what's being fed into your system.
That's true. Yeah,
exactly.
So you have thoughts and emotions. You don't have to react to those, be reactive to them. Observe them. Be the observer, the outside observer, and choose which thoughts you want to manifest. Which ones do you want to grow? And that is, it's like law of attraction, that type of thing. What you focus your attention on is going to become your reality. You know, it's like that movie, was it Number 23 with Jim Carrey? He starts obsessing about the number 23, and then he sees it everywhere because that's where he's focusing his attention on, and that becomes your reality. So you have to be very careful about what you're focusing your thoughts on and what you're thinking about. You can change your reality. You can create whatever you want, but it takes action. You can have thoughts and emotions, but it takes action to make it manifest in the physical world. If that makes sense?
Sure. And actions are the sum combination of our thoughts and emotions, right? They're the divine child.
It's a duality. Goes back and forth. The physical world affects our internal world affects the external world. It's a duality. It's a symbiotic. Yeah.
Firstly, I'd like to clarify something, because it's confused by almost everyone on this planet. Reality and truth are not the same thing. Would you agree? I would define truth as that which makes meaning possible. Basically, truth is meaning, what makes meaningful, what gives meaning to life. That is truth. It always has been, always will be. Reality is what Picasso calls truth, is that which is environmentally and phenomenally. So we need to get these two concepts distinguished. Reality is not truth. Truth is not reality. Truth is the meaning. You could almost say truth or ethic justice. It's a high level of consciousness. Reality is all
separate.
That which is. Is that which is that which is, has will be. It's what is around us environmentally. It's all the phenomena that manifest in reality. So that once you clarify that distinction, it gets easier to think clearly about the topic of discussion. So reality and perception, and I'll read straight from my book, if you don't mind. What is reality? Reality comprises that which is phenomenally and environmentally. What is perception? Perception is the reception of sensory data. What is the relationship between perception and reality? Reality is that which informs perception. What is perception management? Perception management seeks to orchestrate reality's information so as to foster a reading of reality that is favorable to the interests of a cause. What is the defense against perception management? Conscience, the perception, or in a word, perception. So that's it. In 1984, O'Brien shows to Winston how many fingers. He's holding 3 fingers or 4 fingers, I can't remember. And each time Winston the correct amount, he gets tortured. That's what they want to do. They destroy our discernment of reality. So basically, whenever You show whenever O'Brien shows 3 fingers, Winston says 3, he gets tortured, and then when he says 2, which is wrong, he doesn't get tortured. That's the extreme level of control of a totalitarian state. It wants to destroy all reality discernment, right? Would you agree with that?
That sounds pretty right on.
That's the scene in Room 101, the torture at the end of the book, 1984.
Got it. That's a good point.
In that torture scene, he's trying to destroy all reality discernment. So basically, he can, and whenever he thinks he sees the right number is being raised on the hand, he says the correct answer, he's tortured until he says the wrong amount, and then he's not tortured. Then he's sent back into the world as a mind-controlled slave. So that's pretty dark, and that's how dark it can get on this planet.
Sounds like Order followers as well.
That's right.
Yep.
And they're agents of the black sun, right? Of the light that's been completely blocked out, of the inverted, and that's black magic. Black magic is inversion. You take the light, you shut it out, you invert it. That's black magic, and black magic's been a force human on this planet in human society. It started in Egypt. Black magicians probably originate from Atlantis, and there's always been black magicians, and right now they're largely in power, and even Manny P. Hall said that he wrote a pamphlet, The Return of the Sorcerers. They've come back. They're using the same methodologies, but it's worse now because they have more technological facilities that used not to exist. And so in a sense, our era is very dangerous, and that's why we have to keep grinding at that grindstone of the great work every day, because otherwise they win. Otherwise the sun gets completely blocked out. We're in the black sun scenario of basically death everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like they're pretty effective at it too. I mean, they've had a lot of practice. So, and obviously the goal is to propagate objective morality and truth, to align the perception to truth.
Exactly.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
You kind of said a minute ago, Bill, like, what is truth? And, it's based on natural law. There are these laws and principles set in motion that man didn't create. So that's where you're going to find your truth. I mean, right. Scientism is mostly just theories. I mean, it's changing every few years.
Yeah.
So how much can you believe in that? I mean, like we were talking about before, I got into this because of the health perspective of it, but all the health modalities and numbers and statistics aren't based on truth because they were taking these, baseline measurements off of people who are already not healthy. So how can you say that's the baseline for everybody? And
yeah, I had a physical health check a few weeks ago by the most overweight man I'd seen in years.
Right.
It's like, right, you're going to assess my health, right?
Right.
That's pretty common, right? You see that a lot. It's like,
yeah. So I take science and that with a grain of salt. I mean, there's some truth to it. It's not fact. It's just mostly just theories and speculations, but it's a good starting point. But yeah, and then I think life experience trumps anything else in life. I know a lot of people are preaching to do this and do that. You have to experience for yourself. Either it's going to work for you, it's not. Yeah.
Experience and intuition, because right there in the word intuition, you have self-tuition, self-teaching.
Exactly.
I had a quirky thought come into my head like a few days ago about doctors being vampires because they take blood out of our bodies. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh. Sorry, that's just a quirky,
it's a good allegory.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
According to legend, black magicians were turned into vampires, werewolves. It's an old story. It's in the secret teachings of all sages. That basically they've made a pact with a demon. Then they're forced to sort of linger in this realm, kind of sucking the blood out of others. That's the payment you make for being a black magician. You turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a thing I read.
The whole system is vampiric.
It's a vampirical system, exactly.
It's all about sucking life force and tricking you into giving it away.
Yeah, like the corporate symbolism that Mark exposed on his show. The blood symbol, the lifeblood symbolism, the sun symbolism. Yeah, it's vampiric. It's vampirism. Absolutely.
Shields up. Got to get those shields up.
Shields up, swords out.
And
Shields up, swords out, man.
and
Well,
that's a good place
I
to
think
start though, is with health, for sure.
health
That's where your
Yeah.
shields
and
get up.
mental health as well, not just physical.
Oh yeah,
Mental.
health is mental, physical, and spiritual,
That's right.
Yeah,
for sure.
this is our temple. You got to protect your temple because no one's
That's
going to do
right.
that for you. Yeah. So
That's right. The temple and the two hemispheres of the brain.
Absolutely.
well, that goes back to the indoctrination and the conditioning that we've been led to believe, like, oh, this is healthy, do this. The FDA says do that. So there's a lot of confusion out there, and so there's big diet wars going on. People don't know what to eat or what to do. So it can get confusing for sure if you're not educated. You don't know about this stuff.
Yeah, even that alone is stressful and
Yeah.
freaks people out. And
I
can
think
wear you down as well, bouncing back and forth from the polarities of what the health institutes propagate and all that shit.
but the big mistake they'll make is one size fit all, because we have different physiologies. Human beings vary in their physiology. What works for me wouldn't work for other human beings, because we have different bodies, different ways of processing food material. And I came across a review of a book by Rudolf Steiner, who's a very enlightened teacher of the 20th century. And it was, we always say, you are what you eat, but you also eat what you are. Where you are at in consciousness, you will eat a certain kind of way. And you know what I mean? It's not just you are what you eat. You eat what you are. If you are a certain kind of person, you will eat a certain kind of way. You have to eat a certain kind of way. So I think it all comes back to know thyself. If you know thyself, and if you make the effort to know yourself, you will know what's good to eat. It comes from that introspective work that everyone doesn't want to do, but is the only way out of the mess we're in.
That's cool.
No, a lot of it has to do too now. I mean, all that they're learning about the microbiome and bacterium within where you live. So, Thomas, you over there in Britain are surrounded by a different whole world of bacteria. So maybe your diet, your gut microbe, isn't going to respond well to a diet over here in America or for where I'm
That's
from.
right.
So you eat
That's right.
seasonally, you eat locally, you eat where you're at. Then you become symbiotic with nature again, and you have the healthy bacteria. So there's so much to it. And then just, we are electrical beings, our cells are electrical. um
Our heartbeat.
Everything moves, electricity, neurotransmitters. So you have to eat raw living live foods to feed those cells. If you eat dead acidic foods, you're going to create that internal environment and that bacterium. So yeah, it's all comes down to what you eat to make a
Yeah,
temple and open your third eye, you know what I mean? So it's all connected.
for
That's
sure.
right. And that's the thing. Our heartbeats are electrical. So
Hmm.
technology is powered by electricity. So you put one and one together, it's two, right? Technology is nature. Sorry, but essentially technology
To an
is
extent, yeah.
nature. That's the crazy thing that people aren't really tuning into, is what is all this technology we're using every day. It's reified nature, but it is nature. It's powered by natural laws.
Yeah,
So
but I see the problem is, though, we've created a society that's so stressful, and so you know what I mean. You got to get to work, you got to get the kids off to school, you got to do this, you got to pay your bills. We're all under this tremendous amount of stress, all this information overload, like you're saying before. How do you deal with that? How do you manage that? And so it's easy for people to just go to the doctor, take the pharmaceuticals and the pills, then to change their whole lifestyle. Because now, like, people are telling you, oh, on top of this, I got to work out 5 hours a day and eat a diet. Like, that's just more stress. And it's easier for people just to take the easy road out. It's hard work to do the internal work to open that third eye, to the awakening. It's hard to do that. I'm still going through it myself. I've been
Yeah.
on this journey for a while, like 10 years. Sometimes I'll go back into the matrix. Sometimes I'll come back out. Health and awakening is not a linear process, but it's so much easier for people just to take the easy way out. And so it's trying to convince them and teach them and educate them. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, but the end result is going to be fantastic. And so that's what we need to educate people and share with them, and not be, in the beginning, I was real super aggressive, I was attacking people, and, you got to do this, you got to do that. But I've changed my ways since then, but
Yeah,
it's
I like to
hard.
see
It's
it.
hard with all the stress.
Yeah.
I like to see it this way. You know, as people journeying up the mountain of enlightenment, we can only show others the way. We can't carry them all the way. So I mean, we can only show them the way.
Right.
And I think joining with what you're saying about the general restlessness of the modern world, and people sort of even like have a bad conscience just to stop and think. You know, it's like you feel like a loser when you start to read or think. You know, you feel like you're not producing or working. But you know, there's one of my favorite quotes from the great Manny P. Hall is the following: "Moderation is the
Did you say Manny P. Hole? What did
yeah,
you say?
Manny P. Hall.
That's a great last name, P. Hole. Okay.
Moderation is the secret of survival. Moderation is the secret of survival. There you go.
Mm.
Too much of anything is harmful. Too much truth seeking is harmful. You know, I've often found Mark Passio has gone too far with his truth seeking, and I think that's harmful as well. Too much of anything. It's a statement from one of the ancient seven sages. You know, midin agan, nothing in excess.
Yeah, it's
I even
balance,
think
right?
too much virtue, too much virtues are. You know, even Pythagoras said too much virtues can be a bad thing. So I think all our societies, America, Britain as well, increasingly are kind of scared of being moderate, of actually choosing moderation that is all about extremes, all about kind of capitalizing on market forces, on production. You know, it's like a race to the bottom. And in the meantime, time is completely destroyed. Our relationship to time is completely machine determined by machines now. And you know this all better than I do. I'm just restating the obvious that we need to learn the virtue of moderation, including exercise. I don't over exercise. I just do a certain amount each day, which I know is the optimum amount. I don't need to. And I think a lot of people are self-loathing. So that's why they go into extremes, because you're self-loathing. You feel, I need to compensate by exercising, 3 hours a day? But that's, again, not being moderate. So it comes from self-love. Moderation comes from self-love, accepting oneself, and I tend to say, I recommend people to choose self-unfoldment over self-improvement, because self-improvement at the end of the day is about proving things to yourself and others. Self-unfoldment is about becoming who you are, who you were, why you were put on this earth, So
Yeah, discovery,
self-unfoldment.
Yeah.
balance and discovery, right? That's the process.
Exactly.
I mean, there's different levels of consciousness, I mean, I've met people and had conversations where I'm like, all right, maybe next life for you, that you might get this information. That might sound harsh, but there's different levels of consciousness. We're here to learn, discover, and the two forces, evolution and involution. And you could
Entropy
take
and
those.
syntropy.
Correct. Yeah, you could take those two forces and even apply that to health or anything in the natural world. So
And I would go so far as to say they're perfectly matched on this earth. We're in a kind of purgatory scenario on planet Earth. I tend to see that as an optimistic view, because I think a lot of people think we're actually in hell, but I actually think involution and evolution are perfectly matched on this planet. I'm basing this on a vision that I had, which most people would regard as psychosis, but it was a vision. And basically, this vision was eternal hell and eternal heaven. And so it's literally all the cliches are true. It's like the stairway to heaven. So it was like we were all unified as a species, and we were so on the same page, everyone, that we were building this stairway to the heaven step by step. But the other vision I had that alternated exactly with that one was hell. So we were kind of furthering the stairwell to hell. We were furthering ourselves down into like degeneration, depraved conduct, all the stuff we kind of reject, but that's also part of the. So it's like the degeneration into base organism. So that's the ultimate dichotomy, is either we evolve into base organism, or we evolve into cosmic stewards. So it's the ultimate. So that's the difference between the Stargate and the Black Sun. Is Black Sun is we go back to the primal ooze of primeval times. We degenerate into base organisms. And the Stargate is we evolve into cosmic stewards, or cosmic adulthood, as Mark Passio calls it. And that's the dichotomy between evolution and delusion, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. That could be a macrocosm cycle that we see. You know, the principle of rhythm. Um,
Sure.
you know, life and death of even on the micro on cells, and that could be on a very larger scale as well, on just
Sure.
growing consciousness. You know, and then once you get to that point, then you ascend to a different ball game. You know,
That's right. That's what Manny P. Hall said. We're on
yeah,
probation until we grow out of a low one level and we go to the next. See,
exactly.
and as a part what we were talking about yesterday, Will, about disillusionment, losing our illusions, because as long as the penalty we pay for illusion is suffering, right? And as long as we have illusions, we'll suffer until we unlearn the illusions. So that's how we get. That's why we're in the kind of probation scenario, because we're bound to have illusions about some things. Eventually, we graduate out of them to a higher level of consciousness.
Well, it sounds like you're getting into like Buddhism now. You have to separate yourself from attachment. And none of this is going to last forever. We're not going to last forever. So once you let go of the desires and attachments, then you can open up your mind to what's really going on. But we're all so attached to everything, want this, want that, desires, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we're here. But you can't let that control you. And so you got to separate yourself from that, which is hard to
Yeah,
do. We're all self-medicating, some one
Yeah,
way or another.
The
yeah,
Zen teaching is one possesses most completely what one releases most completely.
Yeah.
True possession is what you release, you know, and that's I think that the true Zen mindfulness aim is releasement, thoughtful releasement, to release, to let being release yourself, release others around you, let them be who they are. Stop
Mhm.
trying to dominate or control relatives, friends. Let them be who they are, and that's the path to freedom. You know, that's how I
Yeah.
define freedom. Freedom is the absolving releasement of being let and of letting be. And the opposite of freedom is servitude, the penalizing control of being exploited and of exploiting. Because both exploiters and exploited are slaves, because those who are exploiting others are slaves to having to exploit others. They're in that, so that they're also serfs, as it were. So I like, to get words straight, for me, the opposite, the antithesis of freedom is servitude, and the antithesis of liberty is slavery, right?
hmm
That's just a personal preference. I think Passio often says freedom versus slavery, but I think the real antithesis of freedom is servitude, and the antithesis of slavery is liberty. And I'll just say something else which I came to realize is liberty is the path of most resistance and least suffering. Slavery is the path of least resistance and most suffering. There you
hmm
go.
yeah, yep.
Makes sense.
Well said. Well said. Well, it's all about action too, right? We're on this schoolyard. It's more like a battlefield
Yeah,
to stake your
I
claim
second.
in love and freedom, and you got to work for it. It's not all fun and games, but yeah, you
Yeah.
got to go hard.
Hey, it
So,
wouldn't be worth it if it was just fun and games. I mean, we need a good challenge, right?
oh
The
yeah, for
the
sure.
the forces of the Jedihood need a good challenge, right?
It's all about balance.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's why my candidate for the lost word of Freemasonry is equanimity. That's my candidate.
Mm,
I mean,
excellent.
I know that Mark's word is no, and that's a powerful word. I'd say it's one of the most powerful word, probably the single most powerful word in the English language, which I used recently when they tried to sort of lure me into getting a smart meter. In the end, I just had to say the lost word, no, and they couldn't do anything. What can you do? I said no, and they gave up on their trying to sell me this smart meter thing.
Mm,
And but I think the lost word of Freemasonry, in terms of my preferences, is equanimity. That would be my candidate. It's not a word you hear often, but it is. I think it is the lost word of Masonry.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Because it's about balance. It's about it's about integrating the evil. Because only by integrating the evil rather than denying it can you really overcome it on a human level. You see, my mother's one of those positive thinkers. She denies, she looks away, she doesn't consider all the negative stuff. But you see, I feel that I would not have gone very far in consciousness if I hadn't looked at the evil in the world and integrated it. That's why I value Mark Passier's work, because he doesn't shy away from looking at the evil, and then you integrate it, and that's how you're able to really understand the difference between good and evil.
Yeah.
Unless you look at the evil, if you keep looking away from it, I'm afraid you'll be under mind control and a slave to blind forces. You won't be enlightened. You won't come to a high level of enlightenment. Plus, as Mark Passio says, ignoring the negative will ensure you get more of it. So
Yeah, well, it's the duality of life. I mean, the more the evil and darkness rises up, light's going to match it.
exactly.
You can't have one without the other. So
exactly.
yeah, you got to look at the positive side of things. Might be going some crazy stuff right now, but there's a good balance that's coming up. And I see that people just walking the streets. I haven't seen so many people walking around in my neighborhood, walking the kids, walking the dogs. Everybody's saying hi to everyone. So there's a good benefit to what's going on right now. It may not seem that way, but I think it's bringing people closer together indoors, being more communal. So there is a positive aspect to all this darkness that's going on. Hopefully.
Yeah. I've noticed that as well too. It's
Right.
almost
Yeah.
like there's opportunity for connection
Mhm.
during these times. And I'm always a propagator of like the barter system and, something how
Mhm.
you would see, in true anarchy. And I've talked to my neighbors a lot lately,
Right.
6 feet
Yeah.
apart, but
Yeah.
people are open, it's they're open and willing to connect during these times. And it's a good time to talk to people about this type of information.